Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 265. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and canals and movie stars as we go to Los Angeles.
Got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into this week's interview, I do have three news stories for you. The first one, not everyone seems to be enjoying this move as airlines go to being cashless, taking credit cards only. Kevin Theodore Simon, 45, of Venice, California, was arrested by the FBI on a charge of interfering with a flight crew because he became so angry that he had to pay for his headphones with a credit card that he threatened to take down the plane. Don't do that. And then in other advice of things not to do, a woman was arrested trying to smuggle 44 iPhones into Israel by strapping the handsets all around her body. Apparently, as she was struggling to walk through the airport, she looked quite conspicuous. And then in other things not to do, TripAdvisor put out their annual list of 10 hotels not to stay at, their 10 dirtiest hotels. TripAdvisor is my day job, but you have to check out some of the hotels just for the yuck factor. When people say things like, had to go buy socks so my feet wouldn't touch the carpet, or the bathtub was full of dirty black stuff, crusty white stains on the blanket and sheets. And I still think the biggest surprise is that at least one of these hotels has been on this list for 5 years. People still stay there. For links to all three of those stories, check out the show notes at amateurtraveler.com.
I'd like to welcome to the show Eric Schwartzman, who's come to us to talk to us from LA. Eric is a fellow podcaster and a brand new author, an author of Social Marketing to the Business Customer, which is targeting B2B customers with social media. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
And I say you're a fellow podcaster. I actually knew Eric first from
his podcast, and you do a marketing podcast, marketing social media podcast. You want to tell us just a little bit about that? We'll do a little more at the end of the show.
Sure. It's a podcast I launched in 2005, and we focus on how technology is changing the way organizations communicate and the way people consume media and information.
Great. But that is not what Eric is here to talk about. He's here to talk about his hometown of LA. And Eric, before we started recording this, I told you that I'm only recently starting to love LA, like they say in this song. What is it? Why should people go to LA?
Well, first, let's just set the table here and say, I'm an LA native, so I know the city like the back of my hand. All my family's here. I've grown up here. And I think LA, for a lot of people, gets a bad rap because they come down here and go to Disneyland and they say, oh, I went to LA. Well, that's not LA. That's the greater Los Angeles area. But that's actually a city called Anaheim.
Right.
Or maybe they'll say, you know what, I came out, as you said, your son went to Thousand Oaks. Well, that's not really LA. That's Thousand Oaks. It's a different city. Beautiful city, maybe a lot to see there, but it's not Los Angeles. The trouble with Los Angeles is it's so big and so spread out that if you come here for a short period of time, you really have to know where you're going, or you're going to wind up, seeing the bad side of LA. And the truth is, if you looked at on a percentage basis, probably most of LA, like 95% of it, is a total waste of time. But if you know where that 5% is, where those pockets are, you can have a great time. But for many, finding those places takes a lifetime. So I'm going to try to abbreviate it here for you and your listeners so that people, when they come to LA, know exactly what to do and what to see in a short period of time.
So I think you actually have planned some itineraries for us even.
I did. Yeah, I have 4 different itineraries. And I want to talk to you about them. But first, I just sort of want to give you some ground rules for seeing LA.
Okay. Number 1 would be we need a car. That would be.
Yeah, you got to have a car. You must rent a car. It will cost you a fortune in cabs if you can get one.
Right.
You can't hail a cab. You would have to call one. And it is literally a fortune. So you definitely want a car. The second thing to know is there's a lot of traffic in Los Angeles.
Right, sure.
And traffic can really bum out your vacation. So it's really important that you plan around traffic, and that if you're going to visit somewhere off a freeway, that you plan not to drive during the morning traffic or the evening traffic. And then there's some freeways you should just avoid altogether, like the 5 and the 101 if you can. But those are the first things you need to know. You need a car, and you got to think about traffic because it could literally take you an hour and a half to go 10 miles in traffic if you're not careful.
Okay. And we should mention here, too, that Eric has just used a shibboleth for people from LA, and that is that it's not 101 or 5, it's the 5 and the 101. So if you want to blend in, remember that.
Right. The other thing about LA, you don't have to dress up in LA, but if you want to be treated well, you need to wear nice shoes. At a minimum. You can wear a T-shirt, but it can't be too frayed. And if it is frayed, you bought it frayed because that's the style. If you're a man over 40, you probably want to wear a sports coat and some nice shoes, even if you do wear jeans and a T-shirt, and you'll be treated better at restaurants and hotels, that type of thing. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you 4 days in LA, sort of the best 4 days I could think of. And I organized it on 4 different itineraries. And I also created Google Maps for these. And I know we'll have links to those in the show notes if people want to actually download the maps and see the actual locations, like push pinned on a Google map. But the first day I wanted to talk about was a beach day. So one thing you need to know about LA, the beach in Santa Monica is not like the beach at a resort or like Hawaii. It's not the type of thing where you're going to pack a bag with your swim trunks and go hang out at the beach for the day. It's a city beach. So, keep in mind, there are vagrants around the beach. There's homelessness around the beach, sad but true. So it's not a resort town. You're going to go park it by the beach for the day. Nevertheless, the cities of Santa Monica and Venice offer a lot of great things to do. So my suggestion for your first day would be to have breakfast at a little place on Montana Avenue in Santa Monica, just between 7th and 8th, called Marmalade. It's a little French cafe. It draws a lot of the sort of upper crust Santa Monicans because it's north of Montana, and that's where all the nicer homes are in Santa Monica. And you'll get a feel of sort of the local neighborhood, people showing up for breakfast, that type of thing. It's not expensive, but it's not cheap either. You'll probably pay $10 for an omelet, but it will be delicious. You can get egg whites and vegetables, something really, California healthy fare. Then what I would do is I would walk down Montana to Palisades Park. Right there is a park in Santa Monica overlooking the ocean. You can walk down that park, beautiful walk. And I'd go down to the Santa Monica Pier. And first thing I'd do is go into the carousel. The carousel in Santa Monica Pier was built in the 1920s. It's the original carousel. It's absolutely beautiful. So even if you don't want to ride the carousel, just stop in, snap a few photos. And then what you might do, if you're not afraid of heights, is go down to the end of the pier and ride the Ferris wheel. Beautiful views of Santa Monica and the beach, and really just a wonderful thing to do. If you have kids with you, you might go down and check out the aquarium. Keep in mind, this is not like the Monterey Aquarium or a major aquarium.
Sure.
It's very small. Maybe you can handle some fish. I would say it's good for kids 6 and under. But make sure they're open because they have weird hours, and they often have birthday parties on weekends there. But what I do after that is just by the aquarium there's a bunch of people that will rent bikes to you. So you can rent a bike. There's a beautiful bike path right on the sand there, just through the sand. You can ride down there. I'd ride all the way down about 4 or 5 miles to Venice Pier.
Okay.
Venice Pier, you can take a walk down there, see people fishing. Then what I would do is I'd get back on the bike and I'd ride east on Washington, just about 2 or 3 blocks to a street called Dell, D-E-L-L, and make a left. And then you could ride over the Venice canals. There actually are canals in Venice. When it was originally built back in the 20s by a guy named Abbott Kinney, it was built as a seaside resort. And their novelty was the canals. And they're still there. And there's a bunch of beautiful homes nestled along the canal. So that's a beautiful ride. I'd go down Dell to Venice Boulevard. Then I'd make another left. And just before you hit the beach on the right-hand side is a world-class private art gallery called the L.A. Louvre Gallery. And they get world-class artisans in there. Dale Chihuly had a beautiful glass show there. I mean, anybody world-class coming to L.A. is either going to wind up there or Ace Gallery or one of the other galleries. So you can pop in there, have a look at that. Then when you get down to the boardwalk, no riding bikes on the boardwalk, you'll get a ticket. So just walk down about 3 or 4 blocks. And on your left-hand side is the world-famous Muscle Beach.
Muscle Beach, yep.
And if it's a nice day, you'll have these bodybuilder guys out there pumping iron. It's just a little sort of pen surrounded by chain link fence right there on the beach. It's fairly sleazy. It's kind of got a Coney Island boardwalk kind of feel to it. But, it's a lot of fun. You can go down there, grab a slice of pizza right around there, pick up a Venice Beach T-shirt. Then you can hop back on the bike path. And I would ride this time up to a street called Ocean Park Boulevard. When you get to Ocean Park Boulevard, get off the bike, walk inland, east 2 blocks to a street called Main Street. And right there on the corner of Ocean Park and Main is a famous surf shop called ZJ's Boarding House. No, it's not a boarding house. You cannot get a room there. But what you can get is an original Dogtown t-shirt. Now, for those of you who don't know about Dogtown, okay, back in the day when I was a kid, it was the hot brand of skateboard. And the Dogtown is for the guys that used to skate pools. There's a really cool movie you can rent on Netflix about it, a documentary about Dogtown. So you can get yourself a Dogtown t-shirt, be the coolest one back at home when you get home. Then there's a few things you might want to do right there on Main Street that are kind of fun. If you go north on Main Street from Zuma J's boarding house, on the right-hand side is a place for coffee called Earth Cafe, and it's spelled with a U, U-R-T-H. And if you've ever watched Entourage, whenever they're having coffee, that's always where they are. They're at Earth Cafe. So, it's a place to go and see and be seen, and it's where the beautiful people go and have their coffee. And then right across the street, well, almost right across the street, maybe 2 or 3 storefronts south, is the oldest liquor license in Santa Monica. It's a restaurant called The Galley, and it's one of those places where the walls are covered in fishing tackle and there's sawdust on the floor. And they have great steaks, great fried shrimp. The lobster, I wouldn't get that. I would go with a steak. I would go with shrimp. The salad dressing is delicious. The owner of the restaurant is named Ron. And if you call and tell Captain Ron that Eric sent you, Eric Schwartzman, he'll get you a good table. There's a bunch of little booths around there, and it's just a great place to hang out. They have a little patio in back, but this is kind of a romantic place for a date, or it's a great place for a family. Great family sort of vibe. And there's a Wurlitzer jukebox that's antique with great music. So that would be a recommendation. For those of you that are listening that are a little younger, a little hipper, you want to sort of get into the interesting nightlife in Santa Monica, a few recommendations for you. The first is if you go north of the galley, 2 or 3 blocks, on the left-hand side is a hotel called the Viceroy, Viceroy. And they've shot episodes of Entourage in the lobby there. It's a hot, sort of young, up-and-coming hotel with a pool scene and everything, and a bar scene. That'd be a good place to go. And then, let's see, Venice, Viceroy is on the corner of Pico and Ocean. If you walk down Pico towards the beach, there's only one more block until you hit the beach. There's 2 other hotels that are kind of nice. On the left-hand side, Casa del Mar. They have a cool bar scene there. That was the original bathhouse back in the 20s. And then on the right-hand side is the 5-star, the restaurant called Shutters on the Beach. And they have a restaurant there called One Pico, which I think has a Michelin star, very well known, very good restaurant. And they also have a good little coffee shop down on the beach there. But again, it's a city beach, so it's not the type of thing where you're going to go to the coffee shop at the beach in your thongs and then go down for a swim. It's not going to work like that. In terms of the best restaurant, I think, in Santa Monica, and you're probably going to have to auction an arm and a leg to eat there because it's a fortune, but it is wonderful. Just up the street from Shutters on the Beach is a restaurant called Capo, C-A-P-O, by legendary chef Bruce Martyr, who's very well known in L.A. for having launched a number of restaurants that were, the restaurant to be at for many years. This is his restaurant now. And if you're going to go there, I would definitely recommend a reservation. It's small, very intimate, but it's a wonderful place to sit. There's an open fire there, and they do bone-in New York steaks right on the grill in front of you. They also do a wonderful frise salad with a pancetta that I would recommend. I would recommend the 4-cheese ravioli, delicious, and definitely the chocolate souffle. And all these locations are, again, on this Google map if anybody wants to get back and revisit. But that's my sort of one-day tour of the hotspots to see in Santa Monica and Venice Beach.
As you were talking about the places to see and be seen, I thought of another fellow podcaster, Dan Klass, who lives down in that area, who said it really dawned on him that when you're at the mall even there and you're seeing the beautiful people, that you're not seeing people who look like the people in the magazines. You're seeing the people in the magazines.
Well, first of all, it's very well said. And Dan's a dear friend. The thing about Los Angeles is because the movie business is here, it attracts a very good-looking gene pool to the city, right? And not everybody's going to be famous in a movie, right? Because I've always said you need 3 things to make it in show business: connections, talent, and luck. And, you got to have all 3 in spades or it ain't going to happen for you. But what happens to most, obviously, good-looking people that come to L.A. is, they wind up living here and getting married and having offspring. And so, having lived all over the world, having traveled all over the world, I would say probably there's a stunning gene pool in Los Angeles of just very attractive people. And you find that everywhere you go.
Interesting. And the other thing that's interesting as you start talking about food is LA really does have a food culture. And I don't think people realize or think of LA as a food city, but really everywhere from the food trucks to the fancy restaurants where the Hollywood stars are going to eat.
We have phenomenal restaurants if you know where they are. Most of the restaurants we have, because we're so spread out and so big, are lousy. So it's not the type of thing where, like in New York or Rome or
Right.
Paris, you're just going to wander down the street and find some great place. Not going to happen in that way. You need to know where you're going. But if you know where you're going, food's phenomenal.
Okay, so our first day is a beach day.
Second day, I'm going to say, is your Beverly Hills Westwood day.
Okay.
A lot of people, when they think I'm going to LA, they think, oh, I'm going to go to Universal Studios. I'm going to go to Disneyland. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the real Los Angeles here. So the real Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Venice Beach. Okay. The real Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, Westwood. So here's my Beverly Hills, Westwood day for you. Okay. I would start my day at the Getty Center, which opens at 10 a.m. off of the 405 freeway, just north of Sunset Boulevard. Now, I wouldn't even get on the freeway till 9:30 to get there. But I would arrive at 10 because it gets very crowded there. The first thing I would do at Getty Center is I would go out in the back and enter Bob Graham's gardens, his installation gardens, in the rear of the facility. You've got to enter the right way. It is a breathtaking experience. He is one of the most well-known and respected installation artists in the world. He's done some magnificent installations all over the country, and this I really think is his coup de grace. You walk in, you're on a shelf overlooking Los Angeles, And he's done some just amazing things with how he's planted and where he's put things. It's just stunning, I think.
And I was telling Eric I had just been to the Getty Center for the first time this last year. And for me, I liked the art at the Getty Center. I loved the Getty Center, though. It is itself a spectacular location and with wonderful views. Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you've been to the Louvre, if you've been to Musée d'Orsay, if you've been to l'Orangerie and all these great museums and the Met, okay, it's LA, man. We don't have the best art in the world. But I agree with you. It's more about the physical location and visiting the facility because the architecture is dynamic and the gardens are beautiful. And then depending on what the show is, you can go do a 5-minute or 15-minute or walk through the show. And then what I would do is, around 11 o'clock, 11:30, I'd grab the tram back down to the parking lot. By the way, admission is always free. And I would drive down to a restaurant on Pico Boulevard, just by the Rancho Park Golf Course, called John O'Groats. John O'Groats is a great, so not a pub, but like an Irish coffee shop. And they do a delicious vegetarian hash that's healthy, and you won't feel like you're being deprived of anything. And they'll serve it up with a scone. And it's right by 20th Century Fox. So you may wind up seeing, executives from the studios, maybe even a celebrity sighting in a place like that. Then I would hop back in the car and drive eastbound on Pico. And you'll drive right by Fox. And you'll see the gates to the studio. Just there, past the gates, you'll see the Fox News building. And then you'll hit a street called Avenue of the Stars. And if you make a left there, that's going to take you into an area, a professional district called Century City. Now, the reason it's called Century City is because in those hills, back in the old days, that's where 20th Century Fox shot all their Westerns. So John Wayne, all the great Western actors performed out there. They had little Western sets, that type of thing. I remember when I was a kid, they were actually seeing some of the sets out there. And what happened was 20th Century Fox started to sell off the land to build office buildings. And so, hence the name Century City. And each of the names of the streets in Century City are named after something movie-oriented. So, Avenue of the Stars, Constellation, then there's Century Park East, Century Park West. And what I would do is I would go up Avenue of the Stars to a street called Constellation, make a left. And on the right-hand side, there's a mall, the Century City Mall. And that's the cheapest place to park in Century City. So I would go in there and park, pull a ticket, 2 hours free with validation. And then I would walk out back to Constellation, back up to Avenue of the Stars, make a right. And on the left-hand side there, you'll see just a dynamite building. It almost looks like an H. And it's brand new. And it houses Creative Artists Agency, which is one of the top 3 talent agencies in Los Angeles. So, if you wanted to get a sighting or maybe, see beautiful people coming in and out, there's a couple of different coffee shops around there. You could just sit in any of those coffee shops right on the building and you'll see people walk in and out.
And would it help us at all to bring a headshot with us at that point?
No, it's not going to help you, man. I hate to break it to you. I mean, it's a cold winter, man, in show business. I mean, how you break in, as I said, luck, talent, and connections. It doesn't matter how good looking you are, because good looks grows on trees down here. Hate to be so cruel. I'm just being straight. In the lobby area is a little museum. I wouldn't even call it a museum. It's just a small little space. It's called the Annenberg Space for Photography. And they get some dynamite shows in there. Admission is free. It's a beautiful facility. I would really recommend checking that out. I think you'll enjoy it. So after you've hung out in the CIA building and visited the Annenberg Space for Photography, you can look across the street at the Century Plaza Hotel. That is where the president stays whenever he's in town. That's where every president has always stayed when they're in town. And then if you look just south of there, you'll see the building from Die Hard, which was the building that was, kidnapped, that Bruce Willis came in and had to get the guys out of.
The Nakatomi building.
Right. Yeah, right there. So then you're done with Century City, hop in the car and drive down Santa Monica Boulevard to Wilshire, make a right at Wilshire, and I would cruise down to Rodeo Drive. You can try to find parking on the street, good luck, or you could just park at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which is right at the intersection of Wilshire and Rodeo. And if it's a holiday time, the valet entrance to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel gets lit up like a Christmas tree, and it's gorgeous. It's worth the $20 just to park there. I would. So you could park in there. You could go have high tea in the lobby. Then you could walk up and down Rodeo and visit some of the shops there. Always a lot of fun. If you want to go to Cartier and buy something for your girlfriend or your wife, let me tell you to do it. Because first of all, let me say, I can't go in there and buy anything I want, but here's how you do it. And I learned this from my uncle. First of all, you walk in like you own the place. You just walk in, swaggering side to side, and they all jump too. And they have a certain gold ring there, which is their design, just a straight gold ring. And I think it's like $500, which obviously is a lot of money. But, hey, you can go in there. You can buy a ring. You can walk out. I'll tell you what, man, you'll be $1 million with. It'll be worth the $500 for the effect you get wherever you take in there. Then what I do after I'd seen Rodeo, because I think Rodeo, is probably 30 minutes. Really, you don't shop on Rodeo. Most people wouldn't shop there. It's just a tourist destination, unless you're loaded, in which case you might.
Well, Rodeo is one of those places, if you had to ask how much it costs, you're on the wrong street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can get all that stuff in other places for less. The one thing you might want to do if you like a good Jewish deli, there is a Jewish deli 1 block east on a street called Beverly, 1 block east of Rodeo, called Nate and Al's, 'N Al's. If you go there in the morning, you'll see Larry King there with his posse having breakfast every morning. And they have a really good smoked fish. They have a really good rolled cabbage. I would recommend that, and a really good potato pancake there. At least as good as you're going to get on the West Coast. Nothing better.
And should ask, pause here for a second. You talk about seeing some of these celebrities protocol when we see a celebrity in LA.
Well, let me just say this. I went away to school for a year in Israel. I did an exchange program. And while I was there, I made a girlfriend in Israel. And she came back to visit me in LA. And we went to a little restaurant. It's not there anymore, called Oscars. And, she's all dressed up. I'm dressed up. We're walking into a nice restaurant. And someone walks out. I didn't recognize who he was. But she stopped, dropped her jaw, and, screamed. It was the last day, Chris. We never went out again after that. That was pretty much the end of our relationship. So, yeah, that's a real no-no. You don't want to do that. It's okay to look, and you can look a little too long, but you don't want to stare, and you don't want to be obnoxious about it.
Okay. And I wanted to get to that because I know in both New York and LA, there is a sense that, yes, we have celebrities, and we're too cool to make a big fuss about it.
Well, it's a little uncomfortable because, they're uncomfortable, right? Because they basically, it's not like I feel bad for a celebrity, but let's face it, they've pretty much given up any privacy, right? So, it ain't cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, what I would do after Beverly Hills, hop in the car and drive north on Beverly Boulevard to Sunset, and you will arrive at the real Hotel California, the Beverly Hills Hotel. Remember the picture of the pink hotel on the cover of the Hotel California LP from the Eagles with the bell?
Now, I thought that was supposed to be in Baja.
Well, it's not. It was a picture of the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Yes, it was. And you'll recognize it if you go there. You'll recognize the cover of that hotel. And you can go in there again. You're looking at $20 to valet park, but you really have no other option if you want to go there. And if you want to go there, there's 2 things to see there. You could go to the Polo Lounge, have a cocktail, or you could go downstairs to the counter where you can get a hamburger. And it's actually a really good hamburger. It's really thick, really good fresh ground meat, but just an informal little counter. You're still going to pay $18 for the hamburger, but, it's kind of fun. And if you're going to go to the Polo Lounge and try to get in there, you got to be dressed appropriate, and you're going to have to tip the maitre d' if you want to be seated. And when you tip the maitre d', you're not going to want anyone else to see that you've tipped the maitre d', so you're going to want to do that very discreetly. But that's kind of a fun thing to do. Then I'd hop back in the car, back in the car. Yeah, that's what it's about in LA. It's a commuter culture. And you are going to travel west on Sunset Boulevard till you get to a street called Stone Canyon. Actually, scratch that. I want you to make a right at Hillgard into the Bel Air gates.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that tour books will tell you, and one of the things that if you're here to see celebrities, one of the things you're going to be tempted to do is go on a tour to Stars Homes.
Right.
Or you'll buy a map
of the
to
Stars.
Homes. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me let you in on a little secret here. They don't live there anymore. They've moved. Okay, it's totally out of date. It's a total waste of time. If what you want to do is see beautiful ornate mansions, you can do that in Bel Air. Now, you might be able to pick up a map and see who might have lived there at one point if you like. You can do that on Hollywood Boulevard. But you don't really need to. You can just go by and just marvel at these huge mansions. Make a right at Hillgard, go through the Bel Air gates, take it up to a street called Bellagio, and just drive around up there. You'll just be amazed at how gorgeous these houses are. Now, the streets are not narrow, but they are mountainous streets, so you have to be willing to drive on tight little corners, that type of thing. What you want to do in Bel Air is you want to go to Hotel Bel Air. Go there for a cup of coffee, go there for a drink. It is stunning. Now, it's closed right now, and they're remodeling the whole hotel. I think they're going to have it up by summer. But if you're listening to this, after summer 2011, I would definitely go by the Hotel Bel Air. Again, you'll spend $30 for a cup of coffee with the parking and the tips, but it is a wonderful experience together. It's a beautiful place. After that, if you head down Hillgard, south, and you cross Sunset, on your right-hand side will be University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. And unbeknownst to most people, the most comprehensive sculpture garden in the United States is right on the campus there. And it's free.
I did not know that.
So what you do is drive down, make a right, park. You're going to pay for parking. It's going to cost you $7 or $8. And you'll see 70 sculptures there. They have Auguste Rodin. They have Henri Matisse. They have Henry Moore. They have Alexander Calder. It's phenomenal. And you could go to one of the student restaurants there, pick up a sandwich or something, and just have lunch out in the sculpture garden there. Beautiful. Then what you might do after that, particularly if you've done your homework in advance, just around the corner from the sculpture garden is a beautiful building called Royce Hall. And Royce Hall brings some wonderful talent to perform dance, classical music, also more avant-garde performers will show up there. So if you had tickets in advance, you could then stick around and see a show there. I think that'd be a fantastic day.
There are some typical Hollywood sort of things that you have skipped.
Well, I haven't done the Hollywood Day yet.
Oh, the Hollywood Day is separate. Okay.
The Hollywood Day is next.
All right, then.
All right.
Never fear, we will hear day 3 and day 4 of Eric's tour of LA next week. We're going to do this as a 2-part episode because it was just way too much interesting content for me to try and fit into one episode. So this will become, I believe, the 4th 2-part episode of The Amateur Traveler. If you notice that this part of the show sounds different, that's because I'm on the road again, and so I'm using my less expensive and not quite as good sounding headset microphone instead of the one that I use in the studio. Last time on the show, I told you how to leave an iTunes review, and I shared with you the most positive review that I have received on iTunes. This week, as a change of pace, I thought I would read you the 4 most negative reviews that I have received, or at least the 4 least positive reviews. And I say this partially to encourage you to leave a review, and partially I would have to agree with all 4 of these reviews, and they show you where the show has come from. The most negative review was about the Galapagos Island episode 89, very poor voice quality of a guest speaker. He may have had some good information, but it was very hard to understand. Perhaps another guest with better voice recording quality would have been a better choice. Too bad, I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I'd have to say that was true. I probably would not have published that episode now. I do have higher standards of quality now than I used to, despite the fact that I'm on a microphone that does not sound as good here since I'm on the road. And then we have 3 different people who talk about how much heavy breathing I do. So, good info, but hated the heavy breathing. I just listened to the New York City podcast and I couldn't get through it. There was this heavy breathing in the recording that grated on my nerves. I don't know if it's just this episode, but if it's on any others, I am unsubscribing. And then we get another one that says, good show. This is actually a 3-star review, and it is the 3rd worst review that I've gotten. This show is informative and usually pleasant to listen to, although often the sound quality of the interviews is very poor. And then the 4th worst review I've ever received said, informational. Content is good, however, I have difficulty getting through a whole podcast. Often you hear the host breathing patterns over the content. I find myself unable to focus on what the person being interviewed is saying and turn it off. I apologize if you still occasionally hear me heavy breathing. I do breathe heavily, at least that's what my wife says. But we do edit the show now, and we didn't edit the show at that time. And so that was a trouble with some of the earlier shows. So if you ever do go back and listen to some of the older episodes, I hope you'll understand that things have improved. If you would like to give people a more current impression of the show, feel free to go to iTunes and leave a review. And with that, because I'm tired of this microphone, I'm tired of speaking, and it's time for me to go to bed, I'm going to end the show here. If you have any questions, feel free to send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chris2X. And as always, thanks so much for listening.